And a very good evening, everybody, and welcome to Fairway to Heaven right here on Philadelphia Sports Network. We're live. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, you know the drill. Like, share, retweet, follow, subscribe, turn notifications on, shout it from the rooftop. This is the place you want to be to get all your fantasy and gambling golf information on a weekly basis. You know why? Because we've got grand champions in our midst here. That is why. We've got guys that build winning lineups on this show. We're going to get back to this picture in a second. I am Phil Stiefel, your host, with my main man, Jason Sullivan, as always. Jason Sullivan dressed in championship Tiger Woods attire. Red shirt, black Nike hat, looking like Tiger, like the champion that he is. Good evening, Mr. Champion. How are you today?
I'm good, buddy. It looks like, I'm wearing the Tiger red, but you're wearing the Masters green, so we got something going here.
I'm just wearing the Fairway to Heaven gear, which you could get on our site, which is linked in the bio of this show, where you can support the podcast, support podcasts and local podcasters galore. But I don't care about that. I care about this because we've got championship finally attached to this show. Finally, after 2.5 years of doing this, we've won a GPP. You winning makes me feel like I won just a little bit, even though I don't get any of the money.
Maybe I can throw some money at you.
Nah, it's okay, my man. I just want to know, what were you thinking going into, first off, not just winning, but when you were building this lineup that's on the screen here, what was your thought process last week? Obviously, RBC, or the last week's event, the Memorial, Viktor Hovland gets his first win in, I don't know, it's his first PJ win, period, right?
No, I think
first in a while. I know he's got a lot of wins on Europe and all. I wasn't sure how many he had on the U.S. side of things, but when you're building this lineup and you're taking Denny McCarthy, Si Woo, who I was high on, Lowry, this group here, what was your thought process behind this lineup?
So I didn't love the top end last week, which I know it sounds ridiculous because it was Scotty and Rahm. So right. I basically faded Rahm, and then I played a decent amount of Scotty, but I wasn't in love with Scotty last week just because his putting has really been, a bit scary. But it's funny because he still finished third. So, I mean, even in his crappy weeks, he still finishes third. But I was going for more of a balanced approach, obviously. I thought that every guy in my lineup had potential to win. So I really liked this lineup a lot. I thought that Hovland would be way lower owned, and I thought McCarthy would be way lower owned. So I was a little bit off on my calculations with that. But those were my sneaky plays, quote unquote, and they weren't that sneaky apparently.
Yeah, I'm looking at the ownership combined here. So that's a pretty high. Remember, we were talking about this weeks ago about needing to have like a combined ownership percentage of a certain level or lower to differentiate yourself. And this is not fault. Like, this kind of discredits that theory to an extent, which I still think is a really good theory overall. But it's still a really solid lineup put together, and obviously took care of business over quite a few people winning. I'm just so happy for you. Like, I don't even care about the RBC Canadian Open. Like, I don't. I just care that you won this here.
So there's a couple of things. I want to kind of piggyback on what you said about the ownership thing. A buddy of mine is studying. We had him, Sean Perry. We had him on the show way back when. But he's studying ownership, and he has kind of come to the conclusion that ownership doesn't matter as much as people think it does. I think even team ownership doesn't matter as much. I mean, you look at that, like the whole, I guess, principle behind ownership is that you don't want to be duped, right? You don't want your lineup to be duplicated 2-3 times. But you know what? If it's duped and you win $20,000, you'll still be okay. So play the guys who you want to play. I think ownership is way overrated.
I think that's great because, I mean, you know me, I've been saying that everybody talks about pivoting because of ownership all the time. And then there's guys this week, when we get into this week's field, there are some crazy high ownership projections this week at the RBC that would scare you off of a lot of guys. But if they're guys if you think they're going to win the event, why would you not play them? You know what I mean? So, I got myself a little tricked up last week because I let, my plan going to last week was to play a lot of Rory and a lot of Scotty and to fade Rahm. And then after the show, and as I started building lineups, all of a sudden I'm mixing in. I took 5 John Rahm lineups last week. 6 with Scheffler, 6 with, Rory. If I take those 5 Rahm lineups, and Rahm didn't miss the cut or do poorly, but if I take those 5 and add them to Rory's, usage rate and everything, all of a sudden my return that last week is 10 times more. And I talked myself out of the guy that I liked playing. So sometimes just don't talk yourself out of the guys you like, right?
I think that's the key. I think people get so thrown off by ownership. I feel like it's like you like a guy. I'll be honest with you. If I would have known Viktor would have been 18%, I probably wouldn't have been on him as much as I was.
Right.
Look how wrong that would have been. So
Absolutely.
I don't know. I feel like people just blindly fade based on ownership. It's like if you like a guy, you should probably still fade him. Just go way overweight on him. You like a guy like Hovland. You think
you said that to me after the show last week. Just go, instead of going 10 or 12 lineups, just go 18 lineups with one guy if you really like him that much.
Yeah. I don't like to go all in on a guy, but like to me, Hovland seemed way underpriced last week, and I think that's the key in things is like finding that guy that is underpriced. And people get caught up so much in ownership, and like last week, I don't know. I feel like there's certain ranges where ownership matters more. Like a guy like Corey Connors last week was crazy chalk.
Right.
It's like you think he has win equity. Not really. I mean, to be honest with you.
And then there's a name this week that I think what you're trying to get at, we'll get to him later on the show. It's a guy I like this week, but his ownership percentage and the lack of wins in his career, it's like, do I really want to have somebody own 28% that's never won? You know what I mean? So I think the ownership matters based off of what their price is on DraftKings, what their win equity is. But you mentioned Scott. I mean, I want to get to Scotty Scheffler in a second and how he played, but I want to ask you about Viktor Hovland. Obviously, with him being in your lineup and him winning, you were paying a lot of attention to him this week. Does your opinion of Viktor Hovland change winning an elevated event? It's not a major, but it was an elevated event. It was a deep field. I remember there was one hole, I think it was Saturday or Sunday, where he chunked his around the green game on one hole was just atrocious. He chunked one bunker shot. It stayed in the bunker. And I'm like, this is the Viktor Hovland around the green game that we talk about. And he was able to still pull away from a very deep field. I mean, you had Rory there. You had Siwoo Kim, multi-time winner. You had a lot of big names on that leaderboard. And Viktor Hovland was able to pull it out. Does that change your opinion on him? Do you think he can contend now at the U.S. Open? Obviously he can contend at the Open Championship. He did that last year. But do you change your thought process on him at all?
No, because I think we both already thought he was a stud. I mean, he's been right there. I mean, what is he, like 24 years old? He's been right there so many times in majors that, I mean, he's just so solid. I mean, his around the green game, it's bad, but it's noticeably better than it was. I mean, I know Phil Mickelson tweeted a lot of stupid things over the weekend, but one of his tweets was that how much that Viktor's improved around the greens and on the greens. And that's true. You watch him, like, he just looks more confident putting the ball. And he's just the kind of guy that, like, he contends in big events. He's what seems like a really good dude. Everybody loves him. So, I don't know. It's hard to not root for that guy.
The guy's exciting. The guy's fun. I think he's good for the game of golf as well because of his personality. I always thought he could contend, but I was never. We just used that word win equity. I just wasn't sure whether he would win the big one. Like, he won't be one of my favorites this week at the U.S. Open, but I guarantee I'm betting him for the Open Championship. There's no doubt about it that I'll be betting him for that, in a month. But I want to just talk about Scotty Scheffler for a second. And all the big names in general. But Scotty Scheffler, man, the guy can't putt worth a damn. But yet again, there's no way. I don't think he's finished outside of the top 12 in a single event this year. I think that was only once that he finished in 12th place. He is literally a top 10 machine, even when he is that bad putting. Like, are you worried as a golf fan that if he figures out putting just a little bit, like he might go on a Tiger Woods-esque run of just winning he's that good tee to green that if he could just be an average putter, he might rattle off 4, 5, 6 straight wins.
But it's not like he's doing this in crappy fields. Like, I mean, most of his tournaments that he plays in are elevated events or majors, and he is just right there every single time. I mean, somebody tweeted out yesterday, I forget who it was, tweeted out, and they were like, if he even putts even, he wins every tournament by 5 shots. Yeah. And it's true. It's like he's so awful at putting, and he used to be. I don't know if it was a strength ever, but like when he rattled off that 4 of 7 last year, he was putting out of his mind, and like now it's just like the exact opposite. It's just mental at this point.
It's crazy how mental putting is. And I wonder, and a lot of guys took off this week because of the U.S. Opens next week, going up to Canada, then flying out to L.A. afterwards. It's a lot of travel. It's something when I started doing my research for this week, before I even wrote down like notes on this week's tournament or golf course, I wrote down, let's talk about Viktor Hovland's win, change your mind. And I wrote down, should there be bye weeks in golf? If you're going to play all these elevated events and next year, they're going to restructure the calendar year a little bit. Should there be bye weeks? Because you see people like Rory wearing out, and I know Scottie Scheffler's still finishing top 10 all the time, but wouldn't it be nice like to not all these events in a row? I don't know. Is a bye week something that maybe needs to be put in, or 2 of them throughout the year? And then you get more guys playing in even more events if you give them a built-in week off.
It's too much. I mean, I think the elevated events are too much. It's like every other week it seems like it's an elevated event, which is great because you see these great fields and everything. But like you've seen a lot of guys like Rory, Spieth. I mean, Scotty. I think to a certain extent, you see these guys that are just fatigued, and it's like it kind of makes you wonder. With the U.S. Open being next week, like, are these guys? Is Rory going to be fresh? Is Scotty going to be fresh? I mean,
and I am actually already concerned about that to an extent. So that to me, I know they've already instituted the changes to the smaller fields next year, all the new smaller field events. I forget what they're called, designated events or whatever, 75 or 80 people fields. They are going to add a cut line into that now, as they said. I almost feel like that they gotta find a way to take care of the guys that we're going to see this week so that they still, have opportunities. But they've got to either maybe lessen the amount of elevated events that these guys have to play, or they've got to find ways to build it in bye weeks, because Scotty or Rahm or Rory, eventually they're going to get fed up and they're just going to say, screw the money, I don't need the money, and not playing them. And that's just going to, eliminate the point of the elevated events.
Well, and you get the point. Like, you get what they're trying to do, right? It's just I feel like they don't know what they're doing. You know what I mean? Like, I get what they're trying to do, but I don't feel like they're doing it effectively. It's like you want the big names to play more often. That's great, but maybe spread them out a little bit. Like, this is like, it's honestly like every 2 weeks is an elevated event, and then this is the season where like every month is a major also. So
I mean, think about it. What are they? They're only allowed to miss one elevated event. I mean, that's not, Rory's already backed out of one, so he's going to lose money by backing out of one. And obviously, he doesn't care about the money. He doesn't need that extra money.
Right.
But, I don't know. I think maybe adding a few more opportunities for them to skip events and stuff like that, or find ways to bring some of those live guys back occasionally on exemptions, to these events. And, maybe you could be able to stretch them out a little bit more there with the star power. I don't know. Something's got to give there. But because I used to look forward to weeks like this, the RBC Canadian Open, it's going to be a, carnage type. You got guys from the Corn Ferry Tour, you got amateurs, you got so many different players in this event. And I used to look forward to these, but it's, so few and far between of these weaker fields that I don't know enough about these weak guys anymore, because we're not keeping up on them anymore. And I'm not looking forward to this week as much as years past because of that.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, we haven't seen any of these, like lesser guys, it seems like, win in a long time. I mean, like, it's always like every week you're talking like the big names that are winning.
Emiliano Grillo, 71.
Yeah.
I almost hit 271s, 70 to 1s in a row. Almost.
That would have been awesome. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just think it's too much. It's like the idea is great. The elevated events are great, but at the same time, I don't know. It's just too much.
There we go. Get the finger pointed up there just right for you again. Just reminding everybody constantly throughout the show that you're the champion. All right, let's get into this week. The RBC Canadian Open, 2-time sordid defending champion Rory McIlroy. Obviously, he won last year, won it in 2019. There was no event in 2020 or 2021. Rotation. So it's the first time we're playing at this Oakdale Golf and Country Club in Toronto. There's actually very minimal information on this course. I've been watching a lot of like the Twitter feeds of some of the guys that are on the grounds just to kind of see the pictures and views of what this course looks like. I mean, do you get worried as building lineups and building a player pool when you have literally next to no information to go off of? Or do you feel good? Because I actually kind of like the less information, because I feel like I'm going to trick myself less this week. Yeah. I know I'm going to worry about off the tee. I'm going to worry about approach. I'm going to worry about tee to green. I'm going to worry about putting. And that's it. You know what I mean?
It's funny because, like, you hear people, come out and say, like, "Oh, this is important this week." It's like, we don't really know. Like, we have no idea. Like, and I think you're gonna need to score. You're gonna need to putt.
Score so
I
much.
mean, tee to green seems really important, but this is a week for me that, like, since you don't know the stats, and I've been doing this a lot lately too, where worry less about stats and worry more about, like, who plays well on a course that's 7,200 yards, who
Okay.
plays well in a birdie fest, like that kind of, narrowing it down too.
I put a lot of weight in birdies are better this week.
Me too.
Just because of that. Because you got a lot of guys that aren't in this position often. You want guys that are going to make birdies. And when I was building my temporary or my maybe player pool, I was looking at approach, tee to green, off the tee, all that stuff. But I basically resorted my entire model by just birdies are better over the last 36 rounds. And then I went from there, and I'm like, all right, well, who's in the top 5, and where are they also like, someone like Tyrell Hatton. He's third, birdies are better, but he's also fourth in approach, fifth off the tee. So, like, he lines up in multiple categories, but is great at the birdie or better. I mean, it's what we need, right?
Absolutely. I think the biggest question with this week, and we'll get into it obviously when we get into the pricing, but do you play Rory? I mean, that price is very high for a guy that it's funny because people are like, oh, he hasn't been playing well. And it's like, well, 7th at the PGA and 7th last week.
Right.
So pretty damn good, even though he hasn't
Yeah,
been winning.
Rory, I think Rory, it last week. What was the event he played in before that? The PGA was his previous event, right? Yeah. At the PGA, he started his first 3 or 4 holes off with like 3 bogeys right away. And it looked like he was going to just collapse. And then after that, something happened and he just clicked. And since then, he's been playing really well. Sunday, he didn't seem like he was really all there on Sunday, but, whatever. I was going to bring up, the question about Rory kind of brings up the question about a lot of the guys that have already qualified for the U.S. Open. You got LA Country Club next week. It's going to be going from Canada, further west, time zones. You got to go through customs and all that kind of stuff. I don't normally take travel into account, but with this busy schedule that they've all been playing, do you think any of these guys, him, Rory, Hatton, Sam Burns, who else is at the top of this board? Fitzpatrick defending his U.S. Open crown next week. Do you think any of these guys, if they're here, they're here, but do you think any of these guys maybe take their foot off the pedal a little bit and are just thinking ahead to next week? Or do you think if they're here to win no matter what?
I think if they're here to win. Because I think with Rory, I think he wants to prove that he's still got it. Okay. You think Burns hasn't really been in contention much this year. I think Hatton never wins on the PGA Tour. So, I don't know. Maybe I guess you could argue Fitzpatrick because of his pressure for next week. But I don't know. I feel like Rory is not going to play this event unless he thinks that he's going to win. So
two-time sorta defending champion.
Right, yeah.
I love how I throw the word sorta in there because 2-time defending champion over 3 years. It is what it is. I got an interesting nugget here that I thought about, and I started looking into it a little bit, but not a lot. So I'm going to do more of the looking into it tomorrow before I build my lineups. I'm looking at guys because I don't know if you saw Benny on, withdrew already because he's trying to qualify. He did. He was my top play, and one of my bets, and he already withdrew. So because he was in the qualifier for the U.S. Open today, and you had to play 36 holes today. Dylan Wu, Benny on didn't qualify. He didn't finish high enough to qualify. But as of 5:00, Dylan Wu was on the back 9 of his second 18, still trying to qualify for the U.S. Open today. And then he's supposed to finish today, qualify or not, then fly up to Toronto to play in an event, and then fly all the way back out to LA for the U.S. Open. Guys that are playing qualifying rounds for the U.S. Open today or tomorrow, whenever they may be, I may fade away from this week.
I think that's smart. Because
Dylan Wu, he played 36 holes today, and then he's got to fly up to Canada after today.
It's not even so much for me the physical part, but it's like the mental part too. Like you're trying to qualify for a major, you don't, and then you put all this into it, and then it's like, shit, all right, I'm going to go play this other tournament.
I think anybody that I find that had to play a full 36 holes today, being Dylan, because I like Dylan Wu. I mean, Dylan Wu's a solid, young, cheaper golfer, somebody in these weaker fields that you should target. Like, I think those kind of guys need to be passed over this week for the most part.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that for sure.
All right, so let's break it down. Let's get back to Rory, Tyrell Hatton, Sam Burns. They're your top 3 guys. I don't know if you've looked at too much ownership percentage, but Hatton seems to be the trendy pick, ownership early on in the top end. Does that give you a reason maybe to play Rory then? Because I'm looking at this board and I don't find much in the 7K, much in the low 7K, upper 6K to play, which makes playing guys like Rory and Hatton and Burns, tough. I feel like you can only pick one, and you can't even overexpose yourself to them. If you have to pick one, which one are you going to play then?
For me, it's Rory, 100%. I don't know. I see Hatton's ownership number. Obviously, it's really early, but like 23% for Hatton. That just seems crazy. The dude doesn't win on the PGA Tour very often. So that's a no-go for me. I think Rory, obviously, you bring up a really good point. The lower 7K and the 6K are tough, to say the least, this week. But how do you not play Rory? I mean, I know that he's just head and shoulders the best golfer in this field. I mean, Burns has question marks. He's been kind of up and down. He played pretty well at the Memorial, but he hasn't been that great this season. Hatton's been good, but at the same time, it's like, do we have confidence that Hatton's going to win? I feel like you either play Rory or you skip that range altogether, to be honest with you.
I've actually considered skipping it altogether. We talked about not overthinking about the ownership percentage, but where you do have to come into it, when you're talking about a guy at 10-2 or 10-5 or 11-5, if Hatton is 25% owned, just say, at 10-2, he's got to finish in the top 10, and you probably got to put him in 10 out of 20 lineups, 12 out of 20 lineups to make it worth it, right? Like, am I doing that right? Like, to find value at 25%, you got to put him in 10 or 12 lineups, and I don't know if I would trust Hatton the week before a major at that many lineups.
Well, not to mention, this isn't Scotty Scheffler. This isn't somebody that wins all the time. This is Hatton, who doesn't really win at all. And I have a question for you. So, obviously, ownership it's Monday night, but would you rather play Hatton at 23% or Fitzpatrick at $300 less at 14%?
Right. Yeah. I mean, and I think that's a fair point. Only thing is, I will say, I'm not worried about the guys playing next week, except for somebody like Fitzpatrick, who is the defending champion, who's going to have, he's probably spending some of his time right now planning out next week because he's going to have 10 times more media availability because he is the defending champion. He's going to have to do a lot more as the defending champion. So maybe not Fitzpatrick per se is the right discussion there.
I guess Rose is really high.
This is Jason Sullivan. Yes. He is the smart guy. I'm just the guy that talks.
Who's your friend?
Yeah, who's your friend? That's my man Chatter. He's in every show talking it up. All he wants to do is talk Buffalo Bills all the time and the USFL. I don't know what's wrong with this guy. I don't even know if he's a guy. His name used to be Johnny Chat, so I'm assuming he's a guy. So Rory, Burns, Hatton. I almost want to group Fitzpatrick, Corey Connors, and even Justin Rose at 97 into that upper tier range this week. How do you feel about Corey Connors and the Canadian theme playing in Canada? Because I almost feel like that's similar to Fitzpatrick and the media availability. Like the 3 or 4 decent Canadian golfers have a lot on their shoulders this week.
Right, exactly. No, I completely agree with you on that. And I don't know, again, Connors, I just feel weird about playing Connors when he's 10K or close to it. I know obviously it's field based. Everybody says oh, you can't, compare it, but still, it's still Connors who doesn't really win at 10K. It's but at the same time, would you rather play Connors at that price tag or Rose, who's 25% owned?
Yeah, and see, that's the thing I wanted to get in it because Justin Rose, at least, I was going to say if you had to pick Hatton at 23, Rose at 25, all these top tier guys, ownership wise, wouldn't you feel most comfortable going overboard on a Justin Rose out of all these high owned guys?
Especially at the price savings. That's the biggest thing. Is to me, Hatton against Rose is pretty much a wash. And he's $600 cheaper, $500 cheaper.
I mean, you look at it right now on fantasynational.com, which is, sponsor of the show. Make sure you check them out, fantasynational.com. Their ownership percentage has Rose at 24.5, Hatton at 23, and then just under 20, 19.8, Eric Cole. So if we're not going to worry about, ownership percentage, you kind of have to, though, when you're Eric Cole at 7,900. Are you really going to go that heavy on a guy that's Eric Cole? You know what I mean? I like Eric Cole. The kid's been really good this year, but I'm willing to take a chance on going extra heavy on Rose versus those other two.
Well, Eric Cole too is better to me. Is a better play on tougher courses. This is going to be an easy course. Do we think he can make a ton of birdies? I mean,
actually, let's see where he is on the birdie or better list here. He
28.
is in the last 36 rounds compared to the field. He is
28.
12th in the birdie or better. What, 28th?
28.
I'm, I'm looking different things. I got him at 12th on my list.
Hold on, am I looking at 40? Oh no, that's 36. Yeah.
Do you have any other things checked on your side? Like,
oh, that's easy courses. My bad.
Yeah, see, I just have general speaking.
Yeah.
Overall, all courses, he's 12th in birdies or better. I don't know. It's an interesting conversation to have about the ownership.
To be honest with you, like I didn't even mean to do that, but showing that he's 28th on easy courses kind of makes me wonder: is he going to make enough birdies to contend?
It means he's going to have to make a lot. I mean, what's the winning score going to be this week? 20 under?
I heard Pat Mayo say it could be close to 24, 25 under. Like I would say closer to 20. I think that's safe, but that's still a lot of birdies that you got to make.
I mean, even that withstanding, like, can Justin Rose even get to 20 under?
Right.
Like, you really got to look at these guys and be like, if you want to pick a winner, who could get to 20 under par? Can Justin
And a lot
Rose?
of these guys, I know that Rose has played well on some easier courses this year, but a lot of these guys that are towards the top, Rose, even Connors, Hatton, it's like I kind of tend to lean towards them on tougher courses. And this is going to be an easy course. I don't know. I feel like this week's going to be an absolute crapshoot. I really do.
It really is. And you know, like two guys that should hypothetically jump out to me. Shorter course, short wedges, you know, whatnot. Tommy Fleetwood and Shane Lowry. They're guys that, you know, they're middle range, you know, mid-teens, you know, ownership percentage. Can they go 20 under? Like Shane Lowry and Tommy Fleetwood are tough guys. They're that Pete Dye specialist
They're
type.
grinders, yeah.
They're grinders. Sure. They're not win an event at 24 under. Where's KH Lee or Kirk Kitayama? They're the guys you want. Old Wyndham Clark, you know, and they're not even in this field. So, you know, that's why this week is so difficult to handicap.
Or Cameron Young when he was good still.
Well, this is my big question mark for you. I am intrigued because it's going to be a crapshoot this week, right? Can we agree on that?
For sure.
Okay. Cam Young, bomber, can score low. He is going to be the lowest owned guy probably in the 9 and 10K range. I know he's missed his last two cuts. Before that, he barely cracked the top 50. Since his 7th place at the Masters, he has been atrocious.
Yes.
Is this the week, in this weak field, that Cam Young kind of turns it around? I mean, he's better than everybody else below him. He's better than Mitchell. He's better than Hadwin, Svensson, Bramlett, Cole, Brandon Wu, McKenzie. He's better than all these names. I'm just intrigued by 11% Cam Young. Or do you think the numbers eventually sway and all of a sudden his number jumps up closer to the event?
No, I don't think his number sways at all. I think about like 10%. It's about right. I don't know. To me, it just I worry. His putting's been horrific, which is putting is always horrific. So not that big of a deal. But like he's not really. I mean, tee to green, he gained 3 strokes tee to green last week, 1.7 the week before. Like I just worry about him. Like he just looks like he's off right now. So I'm definitely not playing him this week. But I could see if you want to get a little leverage.
Who would have thought? And I think this is a hilarious thing here. Let me resort by ownership percentage. Let's see if he's come down a little bit. He's come down a little. Earlier today, when I first did my models and stuff, he was at like 19%. He's down to 15% right now. The other Young, Carson Young, is actually higher owned percentage this week than
Cam. Better. He's been a lot better.
He's been the better Young for like a month or two now. But I don't know. I kind of feel like if everyone's going to overlook Cam Young, I don't know. I'm intrigued. I don't know what I'm going to do. I was hoping you'd 100% convince me yes or no. You've kind of leaned the lever a little bit, but I'm kind of really intrigued.
Right before we went on the air, I was looking at Cam Young and like looking at his profile and everything like that. And I'm like, I wanted to play him. Like I was looking for something to give me a reason. And honestly, I just don't know how you do it. I just don't.
I mean, the other name, I'm looking because Benny On was going to be my main play this week.
Yeah, I like
and he's obviously withdrawn. Anybody before we get to the 8K, any other names you want to mention here? Tagala, you know, any of these other names, Kuchar.
This is weird for me because I feel like I don't have faith in any of these guys that they can go super low. Like these are all guys that play well on difficult courses.
Right.
Tagala is interesting, but he's been pretty bad too. Like it's just I don't know. I don't love this range, to be honest with you. The bottom part, I like the top part more.
Right. Yeah, I don't like. And honestly, I hate this entire tournament. Honestly, right from the get-go, I'll just say it. I think all the prices are awful. The ownership projections are crazy. Next week's the U.S. Open. I'm just really not feeling a lot of these guys, and that's making it really difficult to pick names to play. How about in the 8K? Go down further. Any names down here that you like?
Yeah, I actually like the AK quite a bit.
Okay.
Benny N was my favorite play in the AK.
I know.
Keith Mitchell's super interesting to me. A guy that popped a lot in my stat model and also his recent form's been really good is Bramlett. I just worry about him with the driving accuracy. Like, the guy does not hit fairways, and they're saying, like, this rough is long and it could be super thick. Like, that makes me a little bit nervous on him.
Well, I mean, I was listening to I forget who I was listening to, said the average width of the fairways on average at the landing zone for the drives is only 25, which the PGA Championship was just over 20. So it's almost as narrow as the PGA Championship.
Well, and they're saying the rough could be really thick in order to prepare them for the US Open. Yeah.
So, I mean, Bramlett, Mitchell, I like those. What about some of the other names like that we don't see as often? You got Højgaard, you got Morank, you got I don't even know how to say the other guy's name. Let me pull it up here so I say it fully. Ludwig Aberg. Yeah. I mean, what do you think? I mean, these are names that we don't know, but we know because we're tracking these guys on Europe or elsewhere around the world. Which way are you going to go towards the traditional PGA guys or these other non-traditional guys this week?
I like Morank. I always kind of seem to play Morank. Like him a lot. Svensson's interesting to me too. I don't know. It's tough. I feel like I got to make some decisions. I feel like Bramlett is playing the best in this range, and I take that back. Bramlett and also Michael Kim. Michael Kim's definitely a smash play for me this week.
Yeah, I'm looking at Nick Taylor too. I know he's missed 2 cuts as well.
I like Nick Taylor too.
But before his 2 missed cuts, he had a 10th at Valspar, 15th at Valero. I don't know. Again, so like Nick Taylor should not be 8,100. Even this week in this field, I think he's overpriced. You know what I mean? In this field. But I do like your opinion on Michael Kim as well.
Michael Kim's been really good. He's never going to win a tough field event, but like in this kind of event, I could see a top 10 for sure.
Michael Kim. I mean, he was on my maybe list. Why did he make my maybe list? Well, 6th at Schwab, 7th at Wells Fargo. I'm just going to write off the Byron Nelson because he lost strokes everywhere.
Here's a question. Would you rather play Cole at 20% or Michael Kim at 14%?
Michael Kim. I mean, I'll probably end up playing both. Like, for some reason, even though I just spent all this time saying I can't comprehend Eric Cole at that ownership percentage, I feel like I still have to put him in at least some lineups. I don't know how to get the right exposure to him.
I feel like it's talent based too. Like, this dude's clearly talented. So
right, but even with all that, let's be honest. Like, Eric Cole was really trending up, but his last 4 events, he finished 24th at the Memorial last week. He had a missed cut at the Charles Schwab, 15th at the PGA, 23rd Byron Nelson, missed cut at the Wells Fargo. So in his last 5 events, he has missed 2 cuts.
Right.
So he was trending up, and then all of a sudden, it's kind of gotten a little, iffy to an extent, sort of. So I'm not sure where the 15, 18, 19% ownership is coming from with him.
Well, it's interesting with him too, because he was 7,900 and 20% owned. To me, there's other plays in this range. Like, I'd rather play Harry Hall at a lot less ownership. I'd rather play Lee Hodges at a lot less ownership. Lipsky, I mean, 16th at the Charles Schwab and 12th last week at the Memorial for a guy that can score. We know he plays well on easy courses. Like, I mean, Lipsky's probably the best play in this range to me.
Yeah, I had Hall circled down, and I had Hall circled as one of the best plays in this range. I also had Mark Hubbard because obviously he makes a lot of cuts and stuff like that, and then also, like I said, Carson Young. I just don't know what to do with his ownership either if it goes up or down. And then I had Dylan, just like you had Benny on as your best play. I had Dylan Wu as one of my best plays, and now knowing he played 36 holes today, I just don't know if I can get behind that. There's other names. I mean, you got Stevens, you got the other Wu, Brandon Wu, Aaron Rye, Thorbjornsson. I don't even know if I'm saying that name right. There's a lot of names, but again,
Aaron Baddeley's been good lately.
Aaron Baddeley's actually surprisingly been pretty good this year on tour, and I feel like it's weird even saying that because
I know
there was a point like 10, 15 years ago that he was supposed to be the next big thing on tour, and then he kind of collapsed completely and kind of a little rebirth this year for him.
Does he still wear the white hat with nothing on it?
I don't know. He's still got the long hair, long wavy hair. Yeah. The profile picture still has the white hat on it. Let's see. 21st at Charles Schwab, 23rd Byron Nelson, 39th at Mexico, 46th. He hasn't missed a cut since the Honda back in February. Had a 7th at the Sony earlier this year. His putters on fire around the green game on fire. Tee to green decent. He's what rough off the tee, and that's right there. If you were saying anybody off the tee it's a struggle, he lost 4.2 strokes, 1.8, 4.5, 2.2, 3.2. His last 5 measurables off the tee. What's that?
He's a short hitter.
288 average driving distance. Problem is his accuracy isn't very. Normally those shorter hitters have higher accuracies.
Right.
He's only 58% accurate off of the tee.
Yep.
So, little question mark there with him.
What golfer makes me question things sometimes is Lonto Griffin. Like, I don't know. I thought he was. I didn't think he was going to be a stud by any means, but I thought like a solid like 8K guy going forward. Like he's just dropped off. I know he got injured last year and everything, but like he's just.
I thought after he came back from the injury, he had a little bit of a trend upward, a little tick upward. He finished 15th at Valero. Then he's gone missed cut 66, missed cut 64th. So, and he's been bad. Like how he made the cut last week, he gained 1.3 strokes off the tee. But I mean, he lost a lot of strokes everywhere else. Yeah. The week before that, lost strokes everywhere. Like, I don't know what Lonto is doing. You know what I mean? I just don't know. We're almost spending more time talking about how bad players are than how good they are this week.
I know.
Any other names here? Because I actually got 2 or 3 names that kind of slightly intrigue me in the 6K range.
No, I think that's pretty good. I like the Hubbard call for sure.
I'm a big Mark, big Mark Hubbard fan.
I just like Hubbard too.
Justin Sue isn't even in the event, Kyle. He's not. Okay, and I'm not going to say. Did Justin Sue completely fall apart last week on Sunday? I'm pretty sure he didn't even finish in the top 30 anymore last week. Like he completely bombed.
I played him just because Kyle talked about him the whole show. I'm like, he needs to be my player pool.
All right. So in this 6K range, and there's one name, and honestly, I didn't even know he had turned pro. I didn't even know he was in the field last week until I looked him up.
Sammy?
What?
Sam Bennett?
Sam Bennett. You know, from his Masters, and he actually played really well last week for the most part. I know he finished 63rd, but he shot an 84 on Sunday. So if you go week to week or like round by round, he was literally in contention. He was in contention for a top 20 finish. And then just like Sunday at the Masters, he collapsed on Sunday. This is a totally different field, totally different mixture of players. And he's 6,900. And he's had all this experience playing with Brooks Koepka, John Rahm, all these big names. I'm kind of intrigued by Sam Bennett this week in this field.
Can we talk about how awful the 6K range is overall?
I'm giving you a 6K play.
I get it. I hear you. I hear what you're saying.
But no, you don't like it.
Smotherman's my favorite in this range.
Which one?
Smotherman. He might be the only 6K guy I play.
Well, what about here's my 6K, you know, my cheap one, 6,500, Jake Knapp. You're saying who's Jake Knapp, right? He's got a 27th, a 66th, a 9th, a 41st, a 5th, a 7th. They're his last 6 events on the Korn Ferry Tour. 3 top 10s in his last 6 events, and a 4th one that's 27th.
Never even heard of him.
Neither have I. But he's playing really good golf on the Korn Ferry.
But he's going to be 20% off.
You need one Korn Ferry Tour guy. I think the last I checked, he was at like 0.7% owned or something like that. Well, he's gone up. He's at 1.9% projected ownership now. I guess some people are starting to realize what is his Korn Ferry Tour. You know who else is in the 6K range?
Who's that? Sean O'Hare.
Sean O'Hare. You know he's going to be in my player pool. You know he's going to get 2 clicks. But yeah, when Sean O'Hare is in a player pool, you know it's not good, right?
You know what's great is when you have like the 6K guy that hits for you one time, and you're like you instantly become like I got to play Sean O'Hare every time he's in there.
Well, Sean O'Hare's never hit for me. He just used to have my buddies.
He did once.
Bag. That's it, you know.
Yeah.
But honestly, he's made 4 of his last 5 cuts. One was a 19th place, and one was a 29th place. So he's played well in some weaker field events. He's not anybody special anymore, but he doesn't hit the ball far, but he hits the fairways and he hits greens. He's not going to be able to make. I am not on a winning streak. Kyle, you missed it earlier in the show. I'm not the champion. Jason is the champion, taking down a GPP. All right, the first GPP in the history of Fairway to Heaven. Not by me, but by him. So we got to give him all the credit in the world. How many people were in that event? 45,000?
35,700, I think.
40,000? Yeah. You know? Yeah.
You know what I love? Can I just tell you this real quick? I love
he's saying the Phillies are on a win streak, not me. I'm talking golf. I know Aaron Nola blew his no-hitter in the 8th inning against the Detroit, but that's about it.
You know what I absolutely love? I love the Phil Stiefel narrative calls. They're my favorite. Like how you just have these guys that you're just like you make these narratives up about them and you just go with it, like Sean O'Hare and Jake Knapp or whoever you just said.
I forget his name already. Well, I said Knapp written down here. Nappy. Knapp was a catcher for the Phillies. There's a bad backup catcher for the Phillies a few years back. All right, Turkey Bacon was his nickname. I don't even know why.
I just love how you come up with these narratives and you're like, and you like you're very like what's the word, like very definitive about who you like, and then you're very convincing.
Can you refresh how many GPPs I've won? So maybe I should not be sticking to this narrative here. Look, I know this week's going to be complete carnage. I don't know if you feel. I'm sure you feel it's the same way.
Yes. Yeah.
These narrative type things like the Bennetts or the O'Hares or the Napps, I don't do them. I'm not going to have those kind of narratives at the U.S. Open next week.
Right. Yeah.
When you're at this kind of an event, you got to take some swing for the fences. I mean, you look at my outright bets this week. Like, I mean, I've got 2 guys over 100 to 1 that I bet to win this event because you just don't know. Like, I bet Tommy Fleetwood, which I don't even know why I bet Tommy Fleetwood to win because I don't think he can make enough birdies. For some reason, when I see Fleetwood's in an event and it's a small field or a weak field, I just always seem to bet him, and I know it's not true. But I bet Mark Hubbard at 110 to 1 and Carson Young at 180 to 1 to win this event.
Jeez.
Like Carson Young, 180 to 1. Tell me that's not
for sure.
That's cool. I mean, he's going to be owned in 18% of lineups, yet I got him at 180 to 1.
I feel like that's when you fade him in DraftKings, but you just hope that he wins for your bet.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much what I'm hoping for with him right there.
I don't know. I feel like this is a week too where like it's kind of like to say what you just said in different words. I feel like this is an upside week. It's going to be a crapshoot most likely, but I feel like it's an upside week. Like who do we feel has the upside? Like if something goes right, like Hubbard, Carson Young, I think guys like that. Like even a guy like Chad Ramey, who like if he putts could be in the top 10, top 15. It's like,
yeah, I mean it's almost a week where I felt like not even doing 20 lineups, where I'm almost like let me just do 6 lineups, like two max enter, 2-3 max things, and just build 6 completely unique lineups with no overlap. And I know that sounds kind of crazy, but like just do one lineup with Rory McIlroy, just do one lineup with Sean O'Hare, just one lineup with.
You just said do one with Rory, do one with Sean O'Hare, the best guy in the field by far.
They're basically the same player, right? Minus a couple $100 million in the bank.
Definitely
right?
both guys you want to build around for sure.
Badia bounce back week 125 to 1.
That's pretty good odds for him too.
I mean, he's one of those guys that has a lot of hype. How do you say his name properly?
Akshay Bhatia.
Bhatia. I always want to say Badia, but Bhatia. Akshay Bhatia.
I'm sure he's that good.
I don't think he's that good. I think there's a lot of hype over his girlfriend situation, over his, physique and stuff like that. I don't know if he's like, there's a video of him like shirtless swinging circulating a few weeks back, and everybody was joking about it because he looked like he hasn't eaten a cheeseburger in like 6 years.
Yeah, he's
so skinny, but he's jacked beyond belief as well. I mean, missed cut 56, 43rd, 4th, missed cut 46, 24th, missed cut 2nd. I mean, his range is 2nd to missed cut. And
I will give you that this is the kind of event that he contends in. Like he played good.
And at 120, I'm getting my money back on my Benny-On bet. Maybe I split that and do a half of a bet on a Bahidi at 125 and some other long shot at that point.
Yeah. Chad Ramey.
I think there's a lot of risk reward this week.
You didn't hear my Chad Ramey.
Yeah. I'll you know what? I'll look up what Chad Ramey is top 10 and I'll throw a penny or two on him. How about that? Oh, let me see if I can find this really fast here. What would Chad Ramey be in?
Listen, 12th at the Charles Schwab, 50th at the Byron Nelson, 35th at Wells Fargo.
I'm trying to find how far down to start looking for his name.
Just printing money for my friend Phil.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it. I want to look up his numbers here. His odds. I mean, not his numbers, his odds. Chad Ramey, 251 to win, 16 to 1 top 10, 40 to 1 top 5. I could bet 50 cents on Chad Ramey to win. And if he starts putting, I'm still winning $125. That's golden right there.
Yep. A couple weeks ago, he gained like 8 strokes putting. So
you're going to need to be able to putt this week because you got to make birdies. You got to putt the birdies. So
yeah,
interesting. All right. So who's winning this week and why? And it can't be Benny On, unfortunately, because that's who I was going to say was going to win, and that a why too.
Fitzpatrick.
The week before he goes to defend his championship.
Yeah, he plays out of his mind. I think Rory's right there too, but I think Fitz wins.
Yeah, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that my long shot of Mark Hubbard actually has a really strong chance at winning. He was in contention for a stretch last week, like he was playing really well. I don't know if he was really in contention, but he was on the leaderboard for a little while last week. I think he's playing in really good form. And then I think a young wins. If it's not going to be Mark Hubbard, it's going to be one of the youngs. Cameron or Carson wins this event. Hopefully it's Carson since I got the 180 to 1 bet. But like this is the week. I just feel like something in my gut says everybody's getting off the Cam Young hype train way too quickly. It's not Bahidi or Bahidia or Akshay, whatever his name. I still get Battaglia. I can't remember how to say his name. It's not like him. Like Cam Young is like a real deal golfer. I mean, he's a guy that's going to be in the top 10 at some point in his career. Like he can't be that bad.
Well, he's played himself off the Ryder Cup team pretty much in the past 5 weeks.
All right. He's been in contention in majors how many times?
I agree. I
mean, at some point, like he's only 14 to 1, so I can't bet that after all the bad play he's had. But I kind of feel like that Cam Young might be. Maybe that's how I get different this week than everybody else. I just go way overboard on Cam Young. He misses the cut, whatever. It's a loss of a week, but I also may win a GPP if I have him in.
You can start a lineup with him too. I mean, like you could.
Yeah,
he's only your first guy. I mean, is he that much worse than Tommy Fleetwood, Justin Rose, Corey Connors? I mean,
yeah, exactly. Kyle saying Rory's going to win. I mean, that would be a sort of 3-time defending champion.
Rory's odds is 2-1.
It was 3.5. It's good. It was plus 350. It's now plus 500. So it's actually gone up. It's kind of crazy because some of these odds have bounced a lot. Justin Rose started 22. He's down to 18. Tommy Fleetwood stayed the same, but Matt Fitzpatrick dropped to 14, and Sam Burns was at like 20, and he's dropped to 14 as well. So a lot of those top names, well, he's 5 to 1 on DraftKings right now, at least up here. So, do they have odds different in different states, or they keep it the same across their boards?
I think it's the same.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, any final parting thoughts before we move on to next week's U.S. Open here?
No, I'm excited for a major next week. Hopefully, we can win some more money this week. And
I'm hoping Max Homa's getting a nice little break because I bet him like 50 to 1 to win the U.S. Open. Like
that's good odds.
Like 3 months ago, before the Masters, I know I bet Max Homa to win the U.S. Open, and I've just been waiting. I don't make many future bets, and when I do, they always end up being big sweats. I had Cam Smith to win the Masters at like 60 to 1 last year, and he was this close. Like anytime I make these things, they're always right there. So I'm really hoping for that Max Homa. Anyway, I think we'll wrap up Fairway to Heaven right there for the night here on the Philadelphia Sports Network. I got Cam Young or Mark Hubbard. Jason Scott, Matthew Fitzpatrick again. We'll put up the championship picture to close out the show. One final time, the champ wearing his championship red gear, his Tiger Woods red championship. Did you do that purposely? Go
no.
Full Tiger look? Was that just coincidental?
Yeah, I just like red.
Yeah. There you go. I hated the Tiger look for a while, but now I miss it. Now that Tiger's not playing golf anymore, I miss it. I want to see Tiger back out there in red every single week. But I appreciate everybody tuning in. We're going to wrap up Fairway to Heaven there. I'll be back tomorrow morning, trending in the AM. We'll be back next week again. U.S. Open week, major week, LA Country Club. So lots of interesting stuff going on there. So make sure you follow, share, retweet, do all that stuff. Shout it from the rooftops. For Jason Sullivan, for Philadelphia Sports Network, I am Phil Stiefel. You all have a great night, and we'll see you next week.